Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to take two of Bitcoin's Town Hall number 61. Apparently, we had some issues launching the earlier one, and I hope this one goes through. Oddly enough, the earlier one wasn't deployed, but then eventually got posted with 4 minutes of video. But it also shows us as live here. Let's see. Okay, great. JPS says you can hear. That's good. I guess I launched the stream a bit too quickly last time. Must have messed it up.
Yeah, possible. Now we need the people to switch here.
Hello. Thank you for letting me know. We would have had a stream of us talking to ourselves. Never good. You might notice I have a change of background. Wallpaper is showing. My bookcase is moved to somewhere else, and it might change one more time because this is not really the best background. It's evolved quite a bit from one town hall to the other. Some may even remember my karaoke sessions from back in the day. Anyway, we've given it quite a bit of time. I think we can go through the town hall updates. Mike is saying my volume was off on the first try. Must have been you guys. No, it can't be. It was more than one person. All right, let's get straight into it. First Maker could not be with us today. He has an external commitment, which unfortunately clashes with this, but I'm here to provide you the technical update as well today. Without further ado, so we're going to talk about development. We're going to talk about the beta testing and the progression in general to the first season and what's in between. We're going to give some marketing updates as well as some AMA questions. First of all, we're pleased to report that we've resolved the connection issue. There was a problem in one of our transitions when we changed to our newest version of backend, that there was a little bit of conflict that happened between the versions, and we've resolved that. However, and it was actually one of the blockers from beta testers or from testnet users to come back in. But the other thing that was holding and currently is still holding us back, but is almost resolved, is the fact that there was some instability on the indexer side. I'll explain that in a little bit. But the connection should now work. You should be able to come into the platform and use the other functionalities, and we get everything else back up and running. On the race schedule of things, our intended schedule for the coming period is to come back to the standard loop, which you guys have gotten used to. So we'll go back to the standard schedule of races, and we'll bring this back for the testnet users as we also expand to a wider user base on the testnet. We're adjusting our approach a little bit. So we've been having a few, let's say, team role changes, and you'll hear a little bit more on that. But one of them is the prodigal noob, or Craig, our lovely game designer, will also take on a little bit more of an operational approach as well, instead of just hiding behind the bushes of game design. And part of that is that he'll also be administering some of this schedule administration. But then the other thing is, we've realized that it's not very conductive to push the general structure testing, let's say, to the wider user base. With all due respect, of course, it's just that it's a coordination effort that's pretty challenging to put conditions, and leaving it to that, I think, has also led to us sometimes maybe missing some opportunities to test, etc. What we're going to do is we plan to actually keep a base schedule that is available for users to keep using. Part of this is we test the stability of the platform, we test how reliable it is, we get general user experience feedback. And then the other thing is our own specific testing, as in if we want to test maiden races, just as an example, or certain conditions or handicapping, we'll set up separate races in addition to the schedule, which will basically say for testing. And then those will be in addition to the standard base schedule. So those will be primarily for the team to test, but may also invite you from time to time to come and test these functionalities. But we also want to keep both in parallel so that you get a chance to continue, let's say, regular testing, while we also are able to do structured testing, and they both coexist. So that's one. We'll also still highlight some occasional feature races that will be for prizes instead of that earlier big festival kind of approach. This is for testnet. This is not intended for the mainnet or post-mainnet release schedule, but this is just for this coming period. Other thing is we'll be testing aging and progression using the similar, let's say, approach, as well as training, jockey impact, etc. So all of that is part of this. On the breeding side of things, this is actually the main part. So on a high-level project planning side of things, we realized that, and we communicated, I think, in the last town hall, that the main functionality that is holding us back from mainnet is actually breeding, where we had developed, let's say, the main breeding functionality, but there was a lot of connection that was still remaining. And actually, I'm pleased to share also and report that a lot of that has actually also now been solidified in that we've already developed, let's say, first of all, an updated breeding function that considers the latest version of metadata that was outdated. And we've also now, we're almost finalized, actually very, very close to finalizing a fall airdrop function. So that is what's going to run every beginning of the month, where it's going to airdrop to the holders of the mares the foals that they're supposed to fall or give birth to. So that fall airdrop function is also close to being wrapped up. We obviously developed the API that is required for the breeding engine interaction or connection with this fall airdropping. We've also already implemented the training endpoint, which is basically receiving training schedules and posting training schedules. We haven't implemented that on the testnet web app, which is what you guys will have access to. So that's also going to be coming into the testing, but we've already implemented it, right? And we've also implemented the regular metadata updater. So that's what would be doing the aging. And we're also bound to now build into that also a daily schedule, which will be for the daily race count, and you're going to need that for the testnet racing. So you're going to ask for that also to be implemented as soon as possible, but it's basically the same one, just run a different frequency. So just validate that can be done using the same one. So that's the breeding level, let's say, update. So what's pending? After we finish the breeding implementation from our blockchain and off-chain part, we're going to have Kayo and the front-end team implement this in the web page, as in the web app that you guys use on beta. That's one. The only, I think, small functionality remaining, which I would say even is not critical for mainnet season 1, though important, is weather conditions. Weather conditions meaning the actual announcement of the forecast, the actual fixing of the weather condition at the time of the race. So we have had in place placeholders that will say it's normal weather or sunny, and then it was just a provision that was left in there so that you can add in the weather conditions. We already have a balance that is meant to be basically the effect of whatever weather is, but what we needed was the function which will actually announce the forecast, the function that will actually set it for each race. So that is a remaining thing, but it shouldn't be major actually. Based on our estimate, let me have a look at this. Based on our estimate, it's expected to take maybe not more than a week if all goes well. That's the off-chain and on-chain implementation. And then we will need to do a little bit of the web page itself integration, but in general, that's what's remaining for there. And the integration as well as the testing. Track condition is also part of this, and obviously it's related to weather. So there's a role table. The way we're implementing this is it's a role table where there's a likelihood of each weather condition, depending on the forecast. First, there's the forecast. Depending on the forecast, there's a likelihood of what the actual weather will be. And then depending on what the weather will be, there's a a different percentage of what the track condition will be. So you're not bound to have very wet ground conditions when the actual forecast was sunny, right? Doesn't make sense. Or if the actual weather turns out to be sunny, then it also doesn't make sense, right? So that's our implementation of the weather conditions. Before I go into marketing, again, there is two, I think, interesting tidbits. One of them is on the mainnet side of things. We are now seriously considering an approach of a soft launch, of a soft mainnet launch. So this would be basically not a mainnet season 1, but a mainnet season 0 or pre-season 1 period. This is meant to kind of do a soft launch period where we get to, first of all, even though we're testing on the testnet a lot of things for stability, but we think it makes sense that we also have a slightly, let's say, softer approach or slower approach to the mainnet release. We get our feet wet with the deployment on the mainnet in case there are any hitches, etc. And then based on that, we grow into the season 1. We're considering things such as parameters of considering that users get to choose when to activate their horses. Should we allow it to work with aging as normal, or should we instead elect for a different set of rules? For example, before season 1, the horses just don't age, or what kind of approach? So we're just considering that, but we think it's in everyone's interest that we also go to mainnet pre-season 1, rather than spending a much longer period, let's say, just purely on the testnet. But it will have to be planned out very carefully. So we're just sharing with you that this is the thing. On the other hand, and this is a little bit of a premature kind of announcement, but we have a few ideas, actually. This is not really competing with the mainnet release. It's more of a future case, but we think it's to be pretty valuable. And there's a few ideas of how we can, and we know that it's kind of trendy nowadays to say, but we don't jump on that bandwagon unless we have something useful. And we have a few useful things to implement AI and AI agents, which actually fit into the realm and scope of Equine as a game and as an ecosystem. Actually, this is pretty new as a concept to us in terms of how it would fit in. We hadn't really discounted it as an option, but we didn't really want to rush something that doesn't make sense. A lot of the team members don't even know what I'm talking about at this stage because it's still an idea, but we are excited to share more about this as it clarifies a little bit more. But we think it makes sense. It's something that's fair, and it's something that adds value to the game, adds to the user experience without being attacked on kind of game elements. So we share with you more about this as we proceed. That's one more thing. On the marketing thing side of things, I'll say, sorry, Mark, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So few small updates here, but first of all, we've seen some interest from the community, so we discussed with Cardano Lands to, join as a part of their ecosystem. So we are that's done. So that's news to those who've been asking. We have few people who are definitely very interested. So. We hope that will be useful for you. The other thing is we are discussing with NuFi Wallet how to integrate their SSO login for the better accessibility, right? So we want to make sure that Equine is as available to most people as to as many people as possible. And then a small update, so Rachel will be on leave from the end of February for a bit, and for that time being, we'll of course continue doing different activities, and Luke will step in to help us with, some of the major Discord communications, just so you guys can keep being updated, stay updated on all things happening. And obviously, as we get closer to either season 0 or season 1, we'll be doing other marketing stuff still. So don't worry about that. Just wanted to give you an update if you don't see Rachel posting or you see Luke posting more often.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take this opportunity to thank Rachel for all her contributions so far to the Equine project. And I'd say she's left quite a mark, and I would say she's a part and parcel of our whole, let's say, community experience, and she's actually done a lot behind the scenes and also in front of everyone in terms of activity. Covering for Rachel will not be a stranger. It will be Luke, somebody you've also been familiar with for quite some time. So he'll be taking over Discord communications and a few of the other roles. And I think we go to the AMA. Right. So can the team provide a roadmap for 2025? I would say at a glance, I would say, one is we continue the testnet phase, which we are now going through. I would say I'm hoping that we can target a soft mainnet launch in Q2. I was hoping that we actually do March, but that's, I think, out of reason. Beginning of Q2, I think, is realistic, a little bit of a challenge, but I think if we put all our efforts and focus to it, should be feasible. So then right now, the current stage is basically continuing the testnet with more focused testing, community continued testing, as well as our own internal testing. But this is mainly to just iron out the critical functionalities. The moment we hit mainnet ready in terms of functionality is, I think, when we should go for mainnet season 0, even if there are things missing here and there that are bells and whistles or are preferred but not necessary. And then once we have the readiness for mainnet season 1, which is when we're proud of what we have in terms of the core functionality. So let's say visualizing all the jockeys in the right way on the 3D viewer, showing the different weather conditions in 3D, a few other functionalities here and there, and we're confident that everything else is in place. I think that's when we should go for a louder, more exciting season 1 that is official and an event for all of us to rally around. But in the meantime, I think that's the target as a roadmap. So that's what we have in mind. We share with you more, obviously, as things clarify. But in general, that's our target. And then from the pre-season 1 up to the season 1 mainnet release. So that's a general roadmap. Obviously, we are laser focused on this delivery. Right now, our bottleneck has been the on-chain and off-chain components for breeding. As we're about to finish that, we go back to the web implementation being the bottleneck. But unfortunately, these things sometimes have to happen in sequence. So you get one out of the way, then you go back to the next one. The 3D viewer, even though it's functional, I would say in its current shape and form, while it's not perfect, I would say it's probably good enough for mainnet pre-season 1. So it's not going to hold us back. We're still continuing optimization. We're still continuing development there, but it's not going to hold us back. I think having breeding functional, having aging to be functional, having training to be functional is critical. So that's what we want to make sure is ironed in, and we get that ball rolling. Question 2: when a pioneer horse rerolls after death, will the rarity stay the same? For example, will you always have 0.2% chance of getting a maiden color? Or if many rare colors are bred, will the chances of getting such color decrease? So the way that drop rates work is they are independent of the population. Technically, if you have if you have a large sample, so say you have a 0.2% chance of a rarity, does not necessarily guarantee that you'll have 0.2% representation. The larger the sample size you have, so if you have 1,000, then you are more likely to have, you are likely to have 0.2% of that 1,000. If you have 10,000, you are more likely to be closer to that 0.2%, and so on and so forth. So 2 parts. Part 1 is if many rare colors are bred, that's not expected to change the drop rate just by that, as in it's not a live adjustment depending on the population, if that's the question. But number 2 is the drop rate or the rarity percent for the pioneer mint may not necessarily be maintained for the reroll. I will be very honest and very clear, transparent, is that considering this is quite a far way away, in that this reroll event will only happen 16 months after the first aging event on mainnet. it's quite a far bit away. So I think I don't want to say now as a statement that I'm 100% sure that the top rate won't change, but I would say the default case is that we wouldn't be changing it unless there's a good reason to. So we'll obviously make sure that it's clear at that point in time. That's one more question. Will the next step after the game's release be going mobile with an Equine app for iOS and Android? As a general principle, we will always have to balance out in our development roadmap what next step brings the most bang for buck, which one fits with our budget, with our resources, and which one brings us closer to our target. Our target for Equine is to scale the platform up after release to make sure that we keep the project sustainable, to make sure that it can grow, and then growing the user base. So obviously, it needs to be as many users as we can, that the users that we have are as active as possible, the normal metrics you have for any healthy online game. That's a whole mind shift change. So right now, yes, we are focused on delivery, project management, making sure we get this released, but then the mindset will completely shift to marketing-centric mindset. Yes, there will still be development that's ongoing, but the main factor will be, are we growing as a user base? Are the users active? Do we have good retention, etc.? So the mobile app is something that we had already started and we've made quite some progress on. It's easier to actually develop after you have a website that's functional because you can refer the mobile app to the website. Earlier, it was kind of a two at the same time, and they could kind of deviate, but now we can actually match it or link it to that. But we also don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So it really depends on what makes the most sense, I would say. So are we going to rush into a mobile app development without clarity on the user base, on how much revenue we're getting from the beginning months, etc.? I would say no, unless we have a funding round that clearly makes it viable and clear cut that we should go into that. I hope my answer is clear. What do you think about having a limited number of races depending on popularity, where entry fees and prize money are paid in Cardano native tokens like Snake or Husky? This is a question that's actually come a few times in different forms and shapes. I think the general answer is we are interested in Cardano native token races. We think that it's one of the very interesting marketing lines or channels, and we want to develop this as a platform or as a line of product where we have races that are cross-promotional that use other native tokens. We think it's a win-win. Our code is actually designed with this support in mind. We haven't tested this. It's meant to support it, but without testing, it doesn't really mean much unless you verify that things are working as intended. But it was built with this design in mind. So there's really nothing against it. Yes, we want to do this. The short answer is yes, we think that this is a good idea, and we think that it makes sense, and it just depends on when and who. But I think, again, there's an abundance of very interesting Cardano native tokens with very interesting communities, and we'd like to be a bridge and be able to also bring some exciting activity to those products in a win-win kind of arrangement. One more question, which I saw from chat, which is, can we scratch after we see the weather? Yes. The scratching period, which is now already on the testnet, which you can see. In the testnet, I think it's set to 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, it's adjustable. But yeah, the intention is that actually one of the main reasons that you want to scratch is if you think that weather is not favorable. So yes, you should be able to. And what else? I think that is all. Unless there are other questions from chat, as usual, we will be in Discord to answer any other questions you have. Thank you so much for everyone who's been continuing the support. I apologize for the period during end December, early January, up until now, actually, where there's been outage of the testnet activity. We'll get back to you with a race schedule that is exciting for everyone. Testing as soon as possible, actually. We had a problem with the indexer where it would crash. And even when it crashed, it would cause the connection not to work. And if the connection worked, it would not return the horses. And we found out that the reason was related to the HTTP service on the indexer. Without going too technical, we think that we found the cause. We've already addressed it. We're not entirely sure it will be stable, but we'll have to go ahead with testing it further. But yeah, basically we're going to upload the schedule, hopefully starting next week, so tomorrow, if all goes well. We will start with the normal schedule for everyone. We'll announce for everyone to come back. And then after that, we also start doing our own internal testing in parallel. There's a few other team, let's say, changes. Mainly there's a few, let's say, downsizing activities, but nothing, let's say, critical to the development. It's rather deliverables that have finished and people who are handing over to the others, but nothing significant. Mainly one of our 2 3D devs, Guillaume, and we wish him luck with his next assignments as well. As I mentioned earlier, Craig will be working on some additional roles other than game design in this period. Rachel, we already thanked for her contribution, and we look forward to actually welcoming her back after her leave. There's a few other actually interesting changes, but are still kind of behind wraps and really depend on some more discussions. But I look forward to the future of Equine. I look forward to rolling this out on mainnet instead of just on testnet, and to welcoming a much wider group and to grow this from a premier gaming project on Cardano to even more and more onwards. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next town hall, if not earlier. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you, everyone.